What's going on, We Read Allegedly fans? This is Dallas here, allegedly. And hey, I just want to let you guys know that today's episode is very special to us here at We Read Allegedly because special guest today will be Mama Squid. And Mama Squid, we want you to know that we appreciate you taking the time to be on our show and to share your thoughts on this book. It was really special to Celeste and to Squid to have you on, and we want you to know that we appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for being literally our number one fan. That said, I do need to apologize real quick about the audio quality for this episode. I did the best I could. We had some technical issues with the recording, and so I've done my best to splice things up so that this is the best possible quality I could give you guys. So I hope it's not too distracting, because like I said, Mama Squid is very special to all of us here at We Read Allegedly Geek Devotions, and we appreciate her being on here. And one last thing. To Squid, I just want to say congratulations, sis, on the marriage, you and JM. We love you guys both dearly, and we hope that you had a beautiful ceremony and a fantastic honeymoon. And we are praying for you guys as you guys continue to grow together in Christ and in love for your marriage. So that being said, let's get into today's show.
Welcome to We Read Allegedly, where we are allegedly reading books. I am Squid. I'm always here, except when I'm not, which I don't think has happened yet, but it could. I am also joined by Celeste.
Hello.
I am not joined by John, as he is still on a hiatus, but in his place, the next best thing, maybe better if you ask me. He's not here, so I don't have to compare, but it's Mama Squid.
I'm finally here.
Yay!
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
This is proof, children, that if you interact with the podcast and let us know what you think, you might get asked on.
Yeah, you don't even have to be related to one of us. You just have to be cool. That is a requirement.
And you have to like books.
If liking books is a requirement for this podcast, I think I would have been kicked off a while ago.
You don't have to like the books we're reading. You just have to like the idea of books.
I like them in theory. In practice. Ugh.
Mama
anyway,
Squid, feel free to just jump in whenever.
Just cut us off, you know. We will be reading a book suggested by our wonderful guest today, but first, as always, what are we allegedly reading? Since you're new here. Mama, what are you allegedly reading?
I brought notes.
Oh.
About what you're reading?
About everything.
Good. This is where I get it.
Yes. I am allegedly reading the Poisonwood Bible.
Ooh.
And I'm literally reading it, even though I prefer audiobooks, but I couldn't find it that way. But it's about a Baptist preacher missionary and his 4 daughters and wife that go off to the Congo in 1959, and I'm not too far into it, so not sure exactly what.
Is it by Barbara Kingsolver? Kingsolver?
Yeah.
I didn't write.
She did Demon Copperhead.
I looked it up because I went, this sounds interesting. Let me add this to my TBR.
I've heard a lot of really good things about Barbara Kingsolver.
I am enjoying it so far, except I will say, having just read Hawaii, which was also sort of about European missionaries going off to Hawaii, there's just such an air of past generations of like, let us white people go teach these heathens how to be white.
Sadly, that was a thing.
Sometimes still a thing.
Very legalistic, too. Like, let's make them follow all the rules so that they can join our church.
Thank God for grace.
Amen. I have, Demon Copperhead is her kind of like modern shift from David Copperfield by Charles Dickens.
Which I just finished and loved.
David Copperfield?
Yes.
You should read Demon Copperfield. If you're liking Poisonwood Bible, I've heard very good things about it. I've heard her name a lot of places.
I feel like I read David Copperfield. Like, I had it on, like, legitimate a book on tape. and listened to it on a road trip, but I don't remember anything about it.
I don't think I've ever read Dickens.
On Audible, there is a version of The Christmas Carol that Tim Curry reads.
Oh, I've seen that. I have not listened to it.
And it is fantastic. But I like Tim Curry.
I think I put Great Expectations on our list to read on the podcast at some point.
Oh, goody.
Gotta get some classics in there.
I watched the Wishbone episode of that.
I think we've talked about this.
I think we have.
Wishbone has come up a lot.
I put it on my Kindle recently after finishing David Copperfield. So
nice.
I feel like me and little Davy would have been good friends. He's such a tender-hearted little boy. You just want to meet him.
I legitimately probably need to go through and do that one again.
Celeste, what are you reading?
All the things. But currently I am in the middle of an audiobook that has me in its thrall, and it's called Superpowered Year 3. And it is a Drew Hayes book. The world is about, because this is the third book in the series. The series is about a world where people with superpowers are a thing, and there are certification courses at colleges to train them to be heroes. So that, you don't have somebody who's just got all these powers but has absolutely no training on how to handle situations. And so it's an interesting world, but there's also, in the midst of this world, there are people that they call powards, which are, they have the powers of the supers, but they don't have the control. So, like, if you have the power of gravity manipulation, every time you get happy, you float to the ceiling.
Oh, it's very Willy Wonka.
Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the characters who in the first book, they create a test, a thing. They're going through the clinical trial portion of it, where they're giving the powards the ability to control their powers. And so they do it with four teenagers, I guess, because technically early college freshmen are teenagers. But they, it's just an interesting series, and I've read the first two, listened to the first two, and they're beefy, but they're really good. And this one, I have to say, I think is almost the best one, because again, it's a building story, so all the little threads that have been laid out are getting picked up and played with, and then there's other things that are happening because every book, even though there's an overarching story, every book has its own thing going on that plays into the main story, and so it's a fascinating world. And I really enjoy the narrator, who is Ken somebody? Hang on. I can pull this up. If I enjoy someone's voice, I will listen to their books.
That's how I felt after Aragon.
Yeah. Kyle McCarley. So he has a good voice, and he does a good job of altering his voice for the different characters. So, even the women, and I'm very impressed with that. So, it's a good book.
What was it called again?
Superpowered Year 3, although I suggest starting with 1, because if you hop in on 3, you're going to be very confused.
That's, fair. I'm going to guess the other one's Superpowered Year 1.
Yep.
A little stab in the dark.
Because there are 4, then it goes through the a general bachelor's degree.
Yes.
Because they also have to earn a bachelor's degree on top of their hero training.
Oh, well, life's tough out there.
Saddled with student loan debt at the end.
Well, the ones that are part of the program that have been powered are not, because they are test subjects.
Oh.
So they don't have to pay.
We all gotta pay for college somehow, and sometimes it's medical testing.
Sadly, I wish that wasn't quite so true.
The book that follows afterwards is just them all getting entry-level jobs.
There is another series that I know is connected. It's like in the same world. I don't know if it follows the same characters though, because I'm scared to look, because I don't want to, because the test subjects can get kicked out of the hero program. So I don't want to look at the description for that book because I might get a spoiler as to who graduates and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Because, like, out of the starting class is like, I don't know, 100, 150 people. Only 15 graduate.
It's like Navy SEALs or something.
Yeah. Only the strong.
Like, they like, this is just that course in general, because they put you through so much and eventually you flunk out because they don't want you to be like, here, go save people and fight the bad guys if you can't handle it.
It's not just, I want the next series to be like all of, were you a gifted child in your youth? Welcome to McDonald's. It's just them living their daily lives.
Yeah. And they kind of talk about that because you don't have to be a superhero or be a hero if you are a super. You can just live your normal life, and as long as you don't, try to go fight bad guys. No vigilantism is a thing, but it's an entertaining series. It plays in a world that I enjoy, and then it also takes looks at it's not all idealistic, if that makes sense. So, Squid, what have you been reading?
Well, not much. One could say I allegedly didn't finish reading this book for today.
Oh no!
The most recent book I finished was called The Meaning of Marriage, because I was required to read it.
That's a good one to finish. For those of you who are just now hearing this, the day that this releases, Squid will be getting married, so Squid and Mama Squid will be very busy. And
no reading that day.
Potentially...
No reading vows, actually. Allegedly.
Legitimately, on my wedding day, I did have a book.
It will be the first time I don't listen to the podcast 2 minutes after it's released, so I'm a little torn between going to my daughter's wedding or listen to We Read Allegedly.
I feel like we can give you a pass until the next day.
Yeah, I mean, the ceremony doesn't start until 1. You can listen to the episode and then come.
Listen to it on the way in and on the way home, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, that'll
Perfect.
So, for all of our friends who out there in listeners' lands, give a big yay, congratulations to Squid and future Mr. Squid.
Feel free to drop whatever.
Comment. Leave a comment.
Feel free to ring that bell. No.
Join our Goodreads group and say, what's up?
And tell her some good marriage advice. Yeah,
or bad marriage advice. Or
just
any advice.
Preface.
Or how you wish you knew some. Or whatever.
Just preface what you're doing. If you're purposely giving bad advice, say, hey, this is purposeful bad advice.
What I learned is...
Oh, no. We're going to have so many comments on this episode, and we never have comments.
Right, can you just...
Or alternatively, you can be a part of our Discord and talk to us there. Again, Squid will not be available for a while, but that's okay, because I will still be there.
Celeste is far more active than I am. And we're bringing lots of books on the honeymoon. So by the time I come back, allegedly, I will have read other things. So,
Allegedly.
So far, the only thing in the suitcase is books. So I think we're off to a good packing start.
You should take that dress and hat because it's super cute.
Probably will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It is my favorite summer dress.
It fits all the tentacles well.
Yes. Let's get into it. Alrighty. Today we are reading The Middle Passage by Charles Johnson. This book was picked by Mama Squid. Squid, you want to read the description of this book?
I do, and also I will just say I knew really nothing about it except that Storygraph assured me that I would love this book. So
sometimes
it says, Rutherford Calhoun, a newly freed slave and irrepressible rogue, is lost in the underworld of 1830s New Orleans. Desperate to escape the city's unscrupulous bill collectors and the pawing hands of a schoolteacher hell-bent on marrying him, he jumps aboard the Republic, a slave ship en route to collect members of a legendary African tribe, the I wrote down Alusari, but it has Almusari as... Okay, so I spelled that wrong. The voyage begins with a metaphysical horror and human atrocity, a journey which challenges our notions of freedom, fate, and how we live together. And I'll just stop there because it keeps going. But.
Yeah.
Also, in case you can't tell, I'm sick. I don't usually have this dusky voice. I don't know.
Husky.
A husky dusky
There's
voice.
dust in my voice. Help.
It feels like it's...
You know, generally, at least you still sound like a woman. When I have dust in my voice, I sound like a man. So,
Well, you know.
there's that.
Yeah.
I didn't read that description before I started this book.
I read no description. And I just
Yeah.
plunged into it. I was like, there's a boat on the front. Cool.
Yeah, that's a guy. I know what the middle passage is.
I still don't.
It's just like the shipping lane in the water they would take between Africa and...
It does say that in the book, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the middle passage is a known thing.
Like a trade route or
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for.
We all have brain cells. We might be sharing them, but we do have them.
Hopscotching. So I didn't know what to expect going in, and for the first half of the book, it's just about this guy on that boat.
Can I just say, I was, like, irritated with him and how he was talking about his lady friend?
I'm irritated about how he talks about a lot of things. But
I mean, this is fair. But that was the biggest thing for me. It was like, he was like, he said something about something about the description of her face, and I don't remember, because I did not write notes, because I like to live by my life by the
Fast and
understanding that I'll
loose.
remember things, and then my ADHD says, no, you won't. And I don't listen to it. But he said something about the description of her face, and I was like, dang, that is so rude. Like, I think I paused it and went, rude?
I remember that. Hold on.
Not take notes on that passage of the middle passage. But
What did you take notes on in the middle passage?
well, one, I took just like a synopsis of each chapter so I would remember, because I read this like the day after we chose it, like 3 months ago. So I knew I wouldn't remember it. So. But also spiritual takeaways like every other chapter.
That's a good
Now
thing.
you gotta keep all those inside until the end.
Yeah.
I found the line that probably made you go stop. Which
What
is
does
when
it
he
say?
says, yet she was pretty in a prim, dry, flat-breasted way. Isadora never used makeup. Da-da-da-da-da-da. She kept her hair pulled back at the skin, or also pulled back the skin at her temples, pushing forward a nose that looked startlingly like a doorknob, and enlarging two watery, moon-like eyes that seemed ever on the verge of tears. No,
Right.
she wasn't much to look at.
I'm like, for somebody who's not much to look at, you sure do have a good description of her face.
You've been spending a lot of time looking. What a guy. What a guy. What's the first thing you have notes on? What is your favorite note? I'll start there instead.
Okay, so I am not sure if this is spoilers, but since the book was written like a million years ago.
It was meant, and it's only 200 pages.
Right.
We run the understanding of the entirety of this is going to be spoilers.
I feel like I appreciated two things. One is more of the spiritual part that I'll get into later, but one is just the irony of the man runs away from a woman he's not interested in marrying and ends up on a ship where he ends up taking a ring from the captain and sort of becoming joined to the captain. And I'm like, it's just ironic that he ends up paired with somebody else he's not very fond of, wearing a ring that matches instead of the woman that he didn't want to marry. So
He did say that himself, in fact.
I thought it was ironic, the fact that he had a fear of commitment and then he jumps on a ship for months on end. Like, this is a good solution.
This is perhaps the opposite of not a commitment. No.
And just the shock sort of realizing someone who had been a slave ends up on a ship where they're going to go pick up slaves, and what it would take to actually be in that situation and think it's an okay job to take, I guess, as opposed to dealing with your bad behavior.
This man goes to great lengths not to examine his own decisions.
Yes, he did.
Measurable lengths. 5 fathoms. In fact.
Literally measurable.
Well, since you didn't allegedly finish,
I did not allegedly finish.
I think you're gonna miss the part where he kind of, I don't know if I would say he's redeemed exactly, but he definitely learns what it is like to walk in someone else's shoes. He gets a deeper understanding of his brother and his actions and his father, and just
Did he though?
all of it. I think so. I can't be wrong. I'm the guest.
The guest is always right. I am just at the part where he has started
Didn't know
talking
that
about
coming
his
in.
brother. Dang.
Darn. I don't know. I was just really annoyed by him in general for the entirety of the book.
Were you? So
What?
did you not like it overall? Or?
It is not one that I would have kept reading had it not been for the podcast.
Interesting.
Like, it had interesting...
I gave it 5 stars.
Storygraph was correct.
That's great. I'm glad that you loved it. I like reading books like this because I enjoy expanding what I read. Because you never know. You might find something you like. And I legitimately enjoy historical fiction. So there were bits and pieces that I liked. But overall, I found I was too irritated at him and everything he was doing to like what was going on, if that makes sense.
I do think over the course of the podcast, I've learned that you need the main character to be likable.
Yes.
For the story to go.
At least I need to like them.
Yes. They don't need to be good, but they have to be likable.
Like, they can be a bad guy, but they have to at least be likable for me to be like, okay, cool, let's read this. But that is a fair assessment.
Did not mind that he was a pain in the butt and dumb. I was fine by me. Mainly because I haven't read... The writing in the book is very good, and I haven't read a book that is, like, super well written in a while. So I was just enjoying that part of it. From the actual composition side.
Yeah, I think, like, chapter 6 and 7, or entry 6 and 7.
Ah, man, I bet those are great.
Yeah, like, if you ever allegedly get there, you might understand. But he really talks about, I think, like, starting to understand more about why his brother did the things he did, because he was kind of angry, I think, about how things panned out and how he didn't feel cared for or whatever, and now he's taking care of a child on the boat that becomes like his daughter at the end, and like he starts to understand that life is more than just about him, I think, and realizing that sometimes that means making hard decisions. And
I do appreciate that they I guess he did have a redemption arc within the story. I just still think he was a bit of an idiot by the end of it. But
Well,
I appreciate
can't fix
that
everything.
they had him have that.
I'm redeemed and I'm an idiot still, so it's...
I mean, it happens. So but it was good to see him grow. I just kind of wish he had grown a little bit more. And I think a lot of it is I did not care for how he treated I don't even remember her name, the young lady that had tried
Isadora?
to...
The one that wanted to marry him?
Yeah, the one that wanted to marry him.
Isadora.
Yeah, I didn't care for how he treated Isadora, and then I did not care for how accepting at the end Isadora was. Because, like, and I get that it's a different time, and when I was reading this, I should have taken that into account. But the way he treated her was inappropriate, and I feel like she was letting herself be used, and so that irritated me. Because at the end of it, they end up getting together, and he's like, I need a mom for this kid. And she's like, okay, bet, let's go. And I'm like, no, that's a bad idea. He jumped on a boat he was not supposed to be on to get away from you, and now that he needs you, you're like, okay, cool, let's get together.
I mean, she also did hire some thugs.
She tried to blackmail him into marrying him.
Extort him into marriage, which is also questionable behavior.
That is, and I have issues with the fact that she did that too.
You know, one broken person plus one broken person is just two real broken people doing bad things together.
And yet still a better family than Musashi was a father.
Oh, well, that's not hard.
And we really don't know anything about her except right at the end, which I won't spoil, I guess. But he comes back sort of mature, I think. Like, again, not perfect by any means, but
legitimately at the end, she is in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, she is.
And he helps her out with that.
See, it's not one of the cases of like, I can make him better. It's just we can make each other worse. Let's go.
And I kind of feel bad for the child who's like, some guy came and grabbed me and put me on a boat, and now I'm with these two people who are not good influences.
Let's see the sequel of her story when she's grown up.
Yeah. So I also had issue with the fact that the book was labeled as a romance. And I'm like, this was not a romance.
Is it?
Was it?
That is one of the tags. It's a historical fiction, and then it tags it as a romance. And I'm like, this is not...
Did the person that tagged it read the book?
I don't know. It was on Amazon, so I don't know.
Oh, interesting. So
It doesn't say that on Storygraph, I will tell you, so...
Well, Storygraph is generally more reliable about that type of thing.
This is, as an aside, a good book to read if you end up not liking it, because it's only 200 pages, so it's a small little thing.
It was a single day for the audiobook.
Yeah. So for a book you don't like, it's not a hard one to still finish. So, I only got a little past halfway, because I just haven't had the time to sit down. But just past the point where they were like, also the thing in our hold is a god. Do we find out what that is?
We do. Spoiler alert, turn your volume down if you don't want to know. It's his father, the runaway slave.
His father?
Riley Calhoun, yeah.
No, that's what he saw, but everybody saw something different.
Did they?
Yeah. Because that part actually was interesting to me. I was like, oh, we're getting into this. What's going on?
The cabin boy, Tommy or whatever, went down and had like visions of...
Yeah, I didn't understand it like that, I guess so.
Yeah, that's the whole metaphysical part, I think, where I was like, this is a supernatural book? Wait a second.
Yeah, I don't know what or who it was, but the implication was that it fed on fear and pain, and so you actually got a lot of his backstory, which was fascinating.
Yeah.
When he went down to feed it.
I will still finish it, and I won't mind spoilers, but I was just like, what is it? I thought this was just a historical book. What is happening?
I was a little shocked to go back and see that I gave it 5 stars as soon as I finished reading it, because as I'm reading through my notes, and I'm like, I really felt like 200 pages wasn't enough. There was just a lot of the story I feel like needed more explaining, and obviously I didn't catch that it wasn't literally his father, because I was very confused how his father ended up in a cage.
Yeah, that's fair.
From Africa on a boat back to America, but stranger things have happened.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why I gave it 5 stars, because right now where I'm reading back through my notes, I'm like, it left a little something to be desired, I guess, as far as finishing the story.
I can feel that. I feel like it's not a slow read. I have finished most of it today. And
well written, like you said. I mean, but yeah, like I feel like he could have expanded a little bit, and also it is weird that they have clearly a worldview they're trying to, spin, like when they're talking about the whole what Wikipedia tells me is called the omnipotence paradox, where if God made a rock so big that he couldn't lift it, could he really be God? Or kind of.
I highlighted a page like that.
Yeah,
which was that Fascinating. That was the only spiritual takeaway I could come up with because I was like, this is interesting.
When the captain's maybe talking about the only truth is the truth you believe in your own heart or whatever. And
yes. When he says, are you saying even a god has limitations? It says not only limitations, but downright contradictions. A god can't know its own nature, for it can't be an object. For itself, it can't be an object of knowledge. And then just goes on to do all the, like, contradictive things of being like, if the god is everything, and then it's, if it's glory and grief, it can't be these two things. Being omnipresent means it can't understand how we experience things, because it just understands everything.
And yet at the same time, when the storm came, they all joined together on deck and prayed.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yes, they did. It's really, it's like the line in the Hoser song, who is not a religious man, so don't take his religious advice, but the line in his song for Foreigner's God is really good, where it just says, screaming the name of a foreigner's god is the purest expression of grief. It's like, even in people's lowest times, they will turn to what they think of as God.
Yeah.
Or something outside of themselves.
Well,
like the old, like, no atheist in a foxhole kind of saying.
Yeah.
Or
well, and that kind of goes with what we've said this before, that everybody has they are created to worship God. And so if they don't, there is a gap in them that they're trying to fill. And so then they're looking for it. So they go, when things go wrong, that tragically, they're like, God, I need you. I don't even know what you are, but I need your help. And so, because they instinctively know that there's something.
Not to say whatever's in this ship was actually a god. It was probably just some lady with some really funky tea messing people up.
well, and they had plenty of illness, like
Yeah.
they
They all had typhoid fever. They are
Scurvy.
seeing things.
all,
Yeah.
all the normal ship things. They end up eating one of them.
They're all very drunk. All the time.
All the time.
It's the only way to keep you healthy is to wash your insides with rubbing alcohol.
They might have gotten a little bit further had they put a lime in some of that.
You put the lime in the coconut.
I was trying my best to not sing that.
You're welcome.
So,
Any other good notes from the chapters I didn't read? I forget what my other notes were.
Not unless we get into spiritual takeaways.
well then, let's go ahead and get into the spiritual takeaways, because I'm honestly good. I didn't take away a lot from it. I was really grossed out by the cannibalism. But that's just I get grossed out by cannibalism anyway.
Yeah, I did like his trying to figure out which pages I marked for why, because I didn't have my pencil with me at the time. His explanation of Captain Falcon and how he presents things. So when Captain Falcon talks about the cannibalism,
Yeah.
and he goes on to be like, this is a man that either wants reverence or revulsion, and he really doesn't care which, because his ego is that big that they're pretty much the same.
He's just there for the grins and giggles.
Yeah. And when he says, he's the kind of person that wants people to look at him differently anyway, so that he would go back and be like, oh, the things I had to do, it makes me different from you.
Yeah.
You common people.
The captain was interesting in general. He's not a character I would have liked. I did not want a POV from him. But
You know who he reminded me of? Which I just thought of in this moment. Another book that I allegedly read for this podcast, which I didn't. Capricorn from Inkheart.
yes.
They both kind of have that, they're scary smart, emphasis on the scary.
It's like a if Capricorn had not been written for children.
Yeah. Which he's still scary written for children. Like,
Oh yeah,
he was
but
the coolest
there was
part of
still
that
a
book.
level of like, this
Mustache twirliness.
yeah. This guy just outright was nuts. I think he
Yeah.
ate a few too many Cap'n Boys.
There's a really good section about poverty, too, where he talks about his brother.
I think I remember that.
And this was the daily debilitating side of poverty that no one speaks of, the perpetual scarcity that, at every turn, makes the simplest act a moral dilemma. And so it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
You can't get to the, let's have a philosophical conversation about this, because you're just thinking about, how do I eat today? How do I make sure I don't die right now?
Things get reprioritized when you're trying to figure out how to continue living.
I think I can sum up all of my spiritual takeaways sort of with the same overarching concept, because it was in like 4 different chapters that I kind of had a similar notation. I mean, from the very beginning when he says like that Isidore's goodness shamed him, like that was part of why he like ran off, and then the dealings with his brother, or like how he fails to sort of man up on the ship. He, even faced with death, he can't kind of like take control the way he should, and I think like even that Missouri,
I'm sorry.
yeah, like it says like they come on board like peace loving, and then in the midst of all of this and the mutiny and everything, they turn them into bloodthirsty. It says that, you know, they were made bloodthirsty, and then like the ship's people become slaves, and the slaves are in charge or whatever. Like everything is kind of topsy-turvy, and towards the end, Rutherford says something like he's become a compilation of all the things he's ever done and all the people he's ever encountered, and it just makes me think about like the company we keep and how they impact us and how they change us for the good and for the bad, and understanding like the whole walk a mile in someone else's shoes thing. I remember telling my children, little squids,
Just one of them is a squid.
like when they were teenagers or something, and you know, you tell them something and they don't necessarily believe you, and you're like, listen, I'm 40, I've been 16, you have not been 40 or whatever. And you know, like Rutherford and his brother, he was never in the position his brother was in, where he had to take care of younger siblings and family and stuff, and once he got into that position, he started to have a deeper understanding of those things. And so I think just spiritually thinking about grace we give to others, forgiveness, how we look at others, how we try to understand walking in their shoes, and just, again, that the company we keep really impacts our lives.
It's really good. Was that your spiritual takeaway, or was that just a thought off the book?
I mean, that's overarching. I think that was sort of the overarching spiritual takeaway for me, was like,
Hey.
and you know, there were littler ones like, you know, trying to run away from sin sort of stuff. Like, you know,
Little. He mentions Jonah a couple times.
I was
on
gonna
this.
say it's very much like Jonah, like and then there were just the clearer ones, like when they were literally like, truth is just what you believe in your heart. There's no one truth or something. And I'm like,
Yeah, the theology in this book wasn't the greatest, but it's not a theology book, so that's okay.
Yeah.
right.
It's more of a sign of people with poor theology, which was pretty spot on.
I mean, yeah. So there were a few characters that were interesting to me. I didn't have any necessarily spiritual takeaways, but there were several characters that were a good example of just human in general. Humans.
Humanity.
Cephalopods.
People. The collective of just different thought processes and how people perceive things. And the mindset of, well, I'm going to get all my fun out now because I need to be responsible later. So, did you have any spiritual takeaways, Squid?
Finish what you start.
That sounds like a mama squid getting onto a baby squid.
Oh, the last thing I marked was my spiritual takeaway,
Yay!
which was just one line, which is usually when I haven't thought of a spiritual takeaway yet, and I say, what can I force in here? Which is right after he has found out about this, ancient African god that they have kept in the hole. And he's like talking to himself and is very scared. And he said, "Gods only appeared," Reverend Chandler had said, "on Judgment Day." And I went, well, thank God that's not true. Whew. But he kind of had that, get it all out now when he says, "For my part, I wanted to live a little longer. I was only 23 years old. The apocalypse world as I knew it, as evil and flawed as it was, to be there for a while." Oh no, the apocalypse would definitely put a crimp in my career plans, which I found funny. "I needed the world as I knew it, as evil and flawed as it was, to be there for a while." I was like, that's often what people think. I just want a little bit longer in this terrible sin stuff, because I got career plans I gotta finish, and I got things I have to do, and...
Well, and then that's
I'll repent tomorrow.
That's a common thought process. We see that a lot in my state in particular, because their description of New Orleans, from my understanding, was pretty spot on. Like, it took me a second to go, oh, this is historical, because honestly, the mindset hasn't changed that much. But the let me have my fun today and I'll repent tomorrow is a common. You see a lot of people who go to the clubs on Saturdays and then they're at church on Sunday, and you're sitting here going, it's so much better though if you choose to live for God all the time rather than only living for Him on Sundays and Wednesdays.
And tomorrow is promised to no one,
right.
so
This could be Judgment Day. Yours.
They could have killed you when they discovered you were in the boat because you weren't supposed to be there.
Judgment Day, the end apocalypse, maybe who knows when, but yours could be any time, buddy. So.
And you will be sleeping with fishes, to quote the Newsboys.
Yep. Sleeping at the gate, as Keith Green said.
Okay. Anyway.
It was Keith Green, right? Am I crazy? The sleeping at the gate?
No.
Who are you? Who are you?
Oh, are you asleep in the light?
Oh, asleep in the light. Okay,
Keith
I was
Green.
close.
That's. I was like, I don't remember anyone sleeping at a gate, but
I was like, I'm confused about. Like, I'm trying to figure out scripture. I was like, is there someone who slept at a gate?
I was thinking of like oil. Jericho or something.
I was thinking like the oil in the lamp that they let their lights go out. The watch.
Oh yeah.
I was just imagining little peas marching around Jericho. So.
Keep marching.
Were they really marching or were they hopping? Because they had no legs.
They were kind of bouncing along, yeah.
Don't judge.
I'm not judging. I'm just
don't judge.
These are the questions I ask, okay?
They have a hitch in their get along.
They do. They got a little hitch in their get along. Well, that's been fun.
Okay. I think that we are good to go, so I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Does that go with everybody?
Thanks for coming, Mama Squid.
Don't run away from people who want to marry you. That's the moral.
Yeah.
Unless they need to be ran away from, but don't run to a boat.
Right.
And then don't go back to them.
And don't eat your shipmates.
Yeah, don't eat your shipmates.
Don't eat humans. It is frowned upon in most societies.
Yeah, we don't promote cannibalism on this podcast.
Nope. And your stomach.
It's bad for their
and
brain,
your friends.
too.
So.
It's bad for you and your friend.
Okay, guys. Well, so long and thanks for all the fish.
Bye!
We Read Allegedly is a part of the Devoted Geek Network, a network of devoted geeks devoted to letting you know that you are loved. Join us next time as we read The Tiny Little Things.